Hey guys, Buckeye Bar Guys. We wanted to thank you guys for tuning in to us here on Buckeye Bar Talk. Great show we got coming up today. We're really looking forward to you guys listening and watching it. But just wanted to remind everybody, just remember to subscribe to the channel, hit the all notifications bell, and that way, anytime a new show comes up, you guys will be alerted to it. And don't forget to like the video and comment on the video. All interactions with us helps us continue to grow, and we appreciate your support. Now to the show. Welcome back, everybody, to Buckeye Bar Guys here on Buckeye Bar Talk. I'm Mike.
And I'm John.
Tonight's day is Monday, May 16th, 2022. Took a few weeks off, kind of the dead season right now. And but
I got
we're
bit by the COVID bug also.
yeah, John was a little under the weather, and we haven't had a lot to talk about, so we decided to get some things in order and stuff. Family life's been keeping us busy, and so back at it now, though. So we got a few topics we want to go through tonight. We're gonna first start with recruiting. Then we'll talk a little bit about some transfers, and then finish up on some news coming out of the ACC and how that could impact possibly the Big Ten with the future kind of, or with how they schedule, how they do their conferences alignments. So we'll get into that. All right. So the big recruiting news that we've had is that he's not for 2024, but 2024, one of the top quarterbacks in the country, 5-star Dylan Raiola out of Arizona, I believe Chandler, Arizona, committed to Ohio State. So
I think he's a Texas kid originally, though. I'm pretty sure I read that he transferred to Chandler.
Okay.
Yeah. Because that's kind of like the big deal school out in Arizona. So I'm not sure if it was to work with someone specifically, parents move, whatever it may be. But that's what I read. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure he's been a Texas kid.
Okay. But regardless where he's from, huge get for Ohio State. He's going to be one of the top quarterbacks in the country. And when you the type of offense they run in Columbus, and the type of receivers they've been getting. And it seemed like a couple of our big remaining receiver targets for 23 we're all pretty excited about the news. And it's going to end up pushing the 24 receivers. Will probably be loving the news. So this will be really big, and I like this. It was, for as crazy as last year's quarterback room ended up, it's nice that, between the two transfers and, us getting Devin out of Utah, and then, with McCord back, it seems like things are kind of spacing out now to the better. So, we'll have a competition season, between McCord and Brown after, we're assuming CJ moves on after this year. If he has another year like he did last year, I think that would probably be probably a solid bet, considering there's a lot of people in the NFL talking about that he might already be the top pick in a lot of scouts' minds. So, if he performs to where they think he could perform. So, I mean, so you're going to have a competition next year, the winner takes the job, and then, then you got a 24 kid coming in the following year. Now that's going to be pretty legit. So I like how the space is going. I like this kid from what I've seen so far. Your thoughts on it?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a great pickup. You always want to get big time quarterbacks. It just seems like that's what Ryan Day does. I mean, he's a big game hunter, fisherman, whatever you want to call it. He's going to get the big fish for his team. So, I mean, I'd watch the kid's tape. He looks very impressive, moves well. A lot of people, there's early comps to Patrick Mahomes, which that is what it is. I mean, you got to do it on the field. Like that's a hell of an honor to be mentioned.
I love seeing those comps, but yeah, I mean, now I'd like to see if he can prove that.
You got to do it outside of high school.
Yeah.
So I mean, but he's still We're talking about what, a sophomore, right? Or going into a junior
Yeah,
year?
he's going into his junior year, so
Yeah,
he's probably
so
getting ready. The school's probably getting ready to end if it's not already end. I know sometimes those southern and western schools they are usually end a lot of times right around mid-May, so he might be done now for school, but you know,
yeah. So I mean, obviously, good comparisons. You love to see that. I watching his film. I mean, definitely, I think he, needs a good technician there to work with him. I don't want to say he got lazy, but he definitely gets comfortable with a lot of his throws, and it kind of remind me different times of like Quinn Ewers' motions and just what he can do with the ball. Obviously, you hope Dylan sticks around past the 1 year.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's a huge get. I'm interested to see what Ryan Day's plan is now. Do you get a filler guy for 23 because you want to get a guy in every class? I mean, you don't want to not get a guy in a class.
Yeah. Um, the way maybe I would play 23 is maybe try to pick up somebody in the portal. If they find somebody they really like in recruiting, go ahead and get them. But I wouldn't force the issue if they don't like anybody. Like, don't bring somebody in just to bring somebody in.
I can see what you're saying. Maybe get someone that, has some experience, maybe a solid backup guy like what you did with
Yeah.
Chudzinski behind Justin Fields. I think that's a good idea. I think that should be a route they go because you do want to get someone in there to have the depth, especially with Stroud. I mean, Stroud's gonna go. We know that.
Yeah, and you got to assume that. I mean, you do got to assume, like the way things are, that whoever ends up winning the job between McCord and Brown, that the loser probably would leave. I mean that,
I mean,
especially,
with this kid coming behind, Devin Brown, if he doesn't win it, then that
yeah,
that's gonna be hard for him to stay.
yeah. So I mean, I could see that situation. So yeah, I would, if they find somebody they really really like in this class, go get them. Um, it just at this point it might be kind of hard to get somebody. I mean, you got Stroud there, that even though he's leaving, but you got a, I mean, you got a backup in him that's played, and you got a pretty seems like pretty impressive you know freshman behind him.
Yep.
So you might have a hard time finding a 23 kid that wants to commit in, that's looking for a starting job. So the if they might end up just having to go to the portal, which is fine. If they find you can find really good quarterbacks. I mean, they could even find a starter in the portal that
Yeah.
might be willing to try to compete for the starting job. So like there's a lot of things that could happen. So we'll see. But I mean, that's definitely some interesting thoughts on that one. But definitely like this kid. I like that there is a split year in there. And it's kind of like, we've kind of talked about this before. It's kind of like the Clemson approach that, they do try to have a year in between guys, and, that, maybe that's the smarter thing to do. Maybe not. I don't know. I mean, Clemson had kind of a bad year last year. So, like, compared to their previous how many years. So,
Yeah.
like, I mean, so I think it's so funny with the transfer portal now. There's just so many different there's like so many different strategies now that they kind of have to it. So I think that's kind of, it's at least it's a good backup plan to have now that they have the portal.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. So yeah, big pickup though. I mean, can't stress that enough. And he's already starting to recruit kids. So, get all those wide receivers, lock down Brandon Ennis and Carnell Tate, and then go on and get some 24 kids too, which I'm sure.
I
I don't know if
definitely
Brian Hartline needs the help or not, but it's good to
I
get.
definitely love that it's I love when it's a quarterback, just like basically one of the first to go in the class, because they're serious about it. They want to start recruiting. Um and he's out there tweeting, pushing guys to come.
Hmm.
So yeah, I'm definitely I like when I see it's a big time quarterback like that, because if he wasn't serious about the commitment, there's no way he would have made the commitment, and and now he's pushing kids to go to Columbus. So, big
So,
pickup for them.
So I read somewhere that those kids are coming back in, though, that they're going to have a 7-on-7 tournament in Ohio. Do you think Dylan's going to find his way to Ohio during that weekend?
If he could get up here, it'd be great. When is that?
Sometime in June. I think it's right around Brandon Ennis's official visit. I think that's his reason for being here.
Be crazy if they could get. Is him and Tate visiting on the same weekend, or
I don't think Tate's not taking an official. So at least I don't think so. So I think people are a little worried about that. Why is he not going to take an official to Ohio State? But he's been here a couple times, and I think he kind of knows what Brian Hartline is. I think he knows what Ohio State's going to be doing with passing the ball. So I think maybe he needs to see other places and make up his mind. But
who knows? Maybe he'll make an unofficial that weekend, and they'll both commit.
I mean, I think they're both going to be in town, so it could very well happen. But I think how it lines up, I think his last official is the weekend before it. So who knows what that means, man?
It's crazy to think that he would be on his last official already.
Well, I think that's just what he's taking. I don't think he's taken all 5 of them or whatever. I just think I could be wrong, man. I don't know.
I mean, I've heard a couple people say that too, but it's weird taking. I mean, I know it happens. It just seems like, I mean, I know you can't get away all the time during the fall. It seems like anymore a lot more kids have been taking a lot more official visits, like in the summers and springs, and that not having. I mean, I remember kids that they enjoyed the whole fall experience where you played your Friday game and then Saturday you were on your official visit. And
Ohio State don't have night games anymore, so
I know, and it is very hard for them to get out there
for a noon game if they played the night before.
Plus, I mean, I've heard the coaches kind of like allude to it, and I've seen some insiders talk about it that outside they'd like to have that one big night game a year where they can get or the one big game where they can get a bunch of guys in. But outside of that, I think they like having official visits throughout the year because they get more one-on-one time. It is probably very hard, to have official visits on game weekends because you got the game and then you got you are beginning scouting for the following game is the next day. So it's like you're trying to squeeze a lot of stuff in there. So like I get some of those thoughts. All right, so on to some transfer news. So over the last few weeks and stuff, we lost a couple additional players that I don't believe we talked about on the last episode. Of course, I think Potter was after that. Was Turrentine?
They're both after because
it's been a few weeks.
They both had good spring games, and I even made the comment that there's no reason to think Noah Potter's transferring, but it's kind of like the thing that could happen after a big spring game like that. So I mean, I'm gonna give myself partial credit for that. Like I kind of called it. Didn't necessarily call it, but I'm kind of feeling
that. So Turrentine ends up committing to Tennessee, and Noah Potter ends up committing today, actually, to Cincinnati, or that's where they're gonna end up at. So I think a pretty good landing spots for both of them. I definitely like the Potter one was definitely a smart one. Going to Luke and Luke. I mean, Luke's gonna be familiar with the kid even if he's never coached the kid. I mean that's. They're all familiar with each other. Plus, I'm sure he was somebody were familiar with him when they were recruiting and stuff. So, I think that I was really excited what I saw out of Potter during that spring game, and Turrentine had a good game too. But I don't know, for whatever reason, I think the Potter news when he decided to transfer. I mean, you can't, with the depth of Ohio State's roster, you can't get bent out of shape over any transfers. I mean, they got so much talent there. It just seems like the Potter one's a little easier in my opinion, just because I'm more the depth at the defensive line is I think a lot better. I mean, those two top lines I have a lot of trust in, so I'm not really worried about the defensive line at all. It seems like they've lost a few safeties this offseason. When you have such a
Sure.
heavy safety defense, that's can kind of worry me a little bit. That I'm a little nervous about the depth at the safeties. Considering you're going to be playing 3 of them.
And I mean, let's face the facts. Also, you might have top recruited kids in both places. I don't think anywhere outside maybe quarterback and receiver now for Ohio State have as many, blue chippers as what our defensive line has.
Yeah.
So that's obviously been something that Larry Johnson's, hit home runs in recruiting with. But he's also trained these kids very well. And you could say, whatever you want to say about last year, maybe even the last 2 years down production. But I mean, they still made plays, a lot of plays, and they were so close to making a lot of plays and getting a lot of sacks. Our secondary last 2 years have kind of been borderline dumpster fire at different times.
Yeah.
And so not only are you're losing the depth, which really, I don't know how bad it hurts, but you don't got a lot of real proven guys that are still there. Now they could do great. Don't get me wrong. I mean, we've seen flashes from all these guys. So they could be phenomenal. They don't got a lot behind them now. I was really looking forward to Andre. I know Tennessee's kind of, what they are in the SEC, but I think that's a great landing spot for him. They recruited him out of high school. And I mean, that obviously shows that people still have, really high hopes for him. That's where he's ending up at. So, good for him. Hope he balls out. I hope he beats Alabama, Florida, all of them. Just hopefully he doesn't win a national title like Joe Burrow did with LSU. I think Tennessee's a little bit further away than LSU ever was, but I hope he does really well. But yeah, kind of where you were on that, like that one kind of as good of a game that Noah Potter played in that spring game. The Andre Turrentine one, I think, was harder to take.
I'm just a little nervous about the depth. Now, don't get me wrong. I loved what I saw out of Kai Stokes, and I think that
he's a kid.
Yeah, he's definitely now going to get playing time. I mean, I think that's pretty guaranteed. I mean, even if they don't suffer any injuries or anything, they're going to move some guys in there, and he's going to be up in some games where they blow teams out. So.
Yeah.
There is depth issues at the safeties. The guys that they have in front of them are all really, really good. And I have really good high beliefs in all of them. It's just, why can't I think of his name? The one coming off the injury is just slipping my mind.
Oh man. Yeah. Oh shoot. Why can't I know? I can't
Proctor.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Jordan Proctor.
Yeah.
No.
Well,
Josh. Is it Josh Proctor?
Josh Proctor. Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry,
guys.
for a minute, and we're doing this at nighttime.
Yes.
Our brains must both be half asleep. No, yes, Proctor. Proctor's coming off an injury. Court Williams has been a little banged up. I mean, I definitely like,
Sure.
Latham had a gruesome injury.
He'll be out for a while.
Yeah, we're not expecting maybe even for this whole season. I like the McAllister addition. I loved Hickman last year, but yeah, they got some injuries in there. So it's like, there is now some issues with the depth. And so, I mean, so that's just my whole point with it. It's not that I think Turrentine, he was going to replace any of those kids necessarily. I thought he was behind all of them, but, depth is depth. And,
Oh, yeah. And that's, I mean, and like, you can think whatever you want to think about Bryson Shaw last year, which again, like I said, the kid was thrown into a really hard circumstance, but you still, that's a lot of starting time that you're replacing, that he's no longer on your team. That's a lot of experience that like, hey, if S hit the fan again this year and someone goes down, we got this guy that's played a lot of playing time. We can plug him in. You don't have that anymore. And, you don't have, and I know Legend was kind of all over the place. He was never going to be a true safety. But then like Andre Turrentine, like you lost a lot. You lost, Ryan Watts at corner, which again,
you lost Hooker also. So
did he transfer?
I heard somebody say he did. Maybe he didn't, but
I I think he did. I don't know. I think he did. I don't know where he
I think
went.
there was like literally a stretch in there where we lost a couple safeties and the corners real pretty fast with each other. I thought he transferred. He was one of those ones that went. Um,
Mm, I thought. Yeah, Marcus Hooker. Yeah, April 26th enters transfer portal. So his might even been the most recent one. I don't. It's been so long.
yeah, but who knows? Maybe if they, I mean, Ohio State's at scholarship limits now, so
Yep.
they've made it to limit. So, um,
Oh, Marcus Crowley. He medically retired
he
too.
medically retired. Which I kind of figured was coming.
That's a tough loss.
It's a tough loss. I feel bad. He's always had those injuries.
Yeah.
But
Like
yeah. Um, but yeah. So that was So yeah. So it's nothing necessarily just to be worried about. Like I said, I'm not gonna be upset over these guys transferring. I think as these years have started to go on, you just get more used to it now. And now with the transfer portal, I mean, you really just got to get used to it. And the all the main parts of the team are still in place. None of these kids, as much as they have talent and stuff like that, none of them have necessarily contributed, you know,
sure. Yeah.
over the last couple years. So, I would love to seen them on the field in more prominent roles with the Scarlet and Gray, but they never made it, and now you just wish them best of luck, and hopefully you know, they do well where they go, and they get to, live their dream, and possibly go on to the NFL. And I think that's as much as you can hope for a lot of these guys now.
I mean, I think you look at some of the landing spots of some of these guys though, and they weren't necessarily misses by Ohio State, which a lot of fans, might have said that they were. I think a lot of it just you got to credit the depth that was already there.
Yeah.
Because I mean, these guys they're not going to Akron's or anything like that. Like they're going to big time schools.
Yeah, and I don't really judge them as misses because sometimes depth casualties are not misses just because you got kids in front of you that have played, have produced, so it's
Yeah.
hard to crack that. So I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say that's a miss or anything like that. It's just I wouldn't necessarily even say the kids in front of them were better. It's just they got the opportunity and they took the opportunity. So I mean, it's kind of just it's just it's a good problem to have, but there's times I'm sure Ryan Day, he didn't want to lose as many kids in the secondary as he ended up losing. But
Yeah, that's tough, but they'll be all right.
the depth issue is a good problem to have when you do have a lot of depth, and they do have a lot of depth. And I'm sure there's a couple guys in the secondary and the younger guys that will get some opportunities now that
Mhm.
might be able to try to get into possibly on the verge of a two deep or something like that. So next man up, right?
Right. Absolutely.
All right. So going into this ACC, we're going to talk about how how this will possibly affect the Big Ten, because I think it's something that the Big Ten has been talking about. Gene talked about it in his pre-spring press conference. So I believe a couple weeks ago, it might have been just this past week. So one of the committees within the NCAA for Division One, they approved a thing that says that basically kind of you don't need to have divisions anymore to have a conference championship. So you can have one versus two and have it all until one gigantic grouping. So, and it seems like it's on the verge now of passing the NCAA, which we will get within, I think they said the end of this month. Maybe it was the end of next month. So the ACC, it seems like that there's a lot of talk in there, and it seems like there's a lot of buzz that that's what's going forward. Just from reading some of the articles, it seems like there's some legitimate support here amongst all the majority of the teams of the schools to go ahead forward with this. So basically, they would do it, and they would go. They call it a 3-5-5 plan. So basically, every team would get their three permanent opponents that they play the same three teams every year, and then that leaves 10 teams left. You'd play 5 one year, 5 the next year, and then I'm assuming you go back to the maybe it splits then for the following 2 years. Maybe they mix it up again or something. Maybe they keep it the same 5 and 5. I don't know how they will do that, but it's an interesting plan. I think it's something that me and you have kind of been behind, especially over the last 2 years. That I think that at least I know I have, and talking to you, I think you're kind of in the same ballpark that we would like the Big Ten to kind of explore this to begin with if they were allowed to do it, because it just seems like all the power is on the East. So it's either realign everything and recreate the divisions again, or do something more like this. And I think that's how I would like to go. I don't know how many permanent opponents the Big Ten would have, whether it's 2, 3, 4, and how they split it up after that into whatever rotation. But I think that, I like this idea. I would like to see, I would love to see kind of all of them go like that. It just seems like some of the things, it just gets stale. I think even, I would love to see the SEC go to something like this where, like, I think you would get some better crossover games and just that, just a mix of games that would be probably better. I don't know. That just kind of my thoughts on it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think everyone needs to go this route anyways. I just don't think that, divisions, they're just so lopsided, and it's true. And yeah, you got Georgia over there in the SEC East. And of course, they're coming off a national title. And hell, the way they've recruited, they could win the, SEC championship a couple times. I'm not saying that they can't. It's just you don't got anything else besides
The
and I
last
think
SEC East team to win it was Florida under Urban, though.
Mhm.
It's like it's been a long time since. And the Big Ten is starting to feel that way now too. When the last time somebody from another division won it is when we were still legions and leaders. There
Well,
nobody.
Georgia won it a couple years ago.
Okay, that is true. Yes, that is true.
They beat Auburn in the
And
SEC.
that was your Alabama made it into the
Backset
playoffs.
beat
Yeah,
them in the national title
yes,
game.
you're right. So they've had one in there
hmm
since Florida.
But outside that, it's been Florida, and that's really, and Georgia's good enough that they could win it every year. I mean, if they didn't have someone like Alabama staring down at them on the other side, they could be Ohio State and just be, the dominant force, or be Alabama, be the dominant force of their conference. It's just you got Alabama over there too. So, the Tide, they're going to take a couple of the games also, but the way that's going, it's probably going to be those two, for the foreseeable future in the SEC title game, just how they're both recruiting and just the level that they're playing at. So yeah, they might still be 1-2, and that's fine. But I think I want to say 2016 Ohio State would have played Penn State also, right? I
I
don't remember how good Wisconsin was. I think though.
Yeah, no, I think Ohio State would have played. The only one I don't think Ohio State would have. The only one that they would not have
What,
made it
15?
would have been 15,
15.
because Iowa was ranked ahead of them. But they would have made it last year.
Well, Iowa was undefeated, but last year they only had one conference loss to Michigan. I think Iowa had two, right?
Yeah, so they would have made it last year. They would have. I mean, they probably would have beat Michigan in it. Like first,
you still got to stop. You still got to stop the run in the dome. So
I think they would have figured it out. And
I'm not saying yes or no on that one. I think they would have had a good chance to wear Michigan out. They would have been thrown all over.
I don't see Michigan being able to keep up with them on that surface there.
I think they would have felt a lot of urgency going into that game, and there would have been a plan to get ahead by a lot early. So
yeah.
And you can't. I don't think they could have lined up and just ran over Ohio State for a second week in a row. I could be wrong. I just don't.
Well, I think they would have come up with some different type of defense. I think that obviously, I know a couple media guys have mentioned this on the Ohio State beat a few weeks ago, kind of, or right before spring, kind of when it was kind of thrown out there. And Gene said he was open to it. Gene definitely said he was open to it. That he said that, kind of right now it's just he's just looking whatever's best for Ohio State, and this doesn't hurt Ohio State. And like I mean, people kind of joke that it only helps two teams, and that's Ohio State and whoever's second in the Big Ten East.
Yeah.
So that's, and I mean, think about how many years that we've now won the championship. That probably every one of those years. I mean, I would have to go back and look through records, but maybe one or two of the Wisconsin teams, no. But probably a lot of those years we would have been playing a Big Ten East school again, and that.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I know for sure 2017 would have been Wisconsin because they were undefeated in that game. But outside of that, I mean, 2018, I'm pretty sure that's Michigan again because that's the revenge tour.
Yeah.
I think that they were higher rated and had less conference losses than Northwestern.
I mean, they were what, number 2 in the country going into that when Ohio State beat them, or number 3.
That sounds right. Yeah,
Yeah.
2019, that might have still been Penn State. I don't know who 2019 might have been Wisconsin. I don't.
Yeah. There's probably a couple years. Well, that's why I don't think if
Wisconsin
this comes
had 2 conference losses, so I don't know. Maybe
if this comes to a Big Ten vote, like I don't necessarily think Wisconsin and Iowa are going to be against this, because they might, feel like that they could get a schedule in there to where they could get some pub and possibly be at that game. So
2020 would have been Indiana, and we would have kicked the crap out of them.
Yeah,
and that would have been nice.
I mean, 2014 we would have had a rematch against Michigan State, wouldn't we? I mean,
because they went to a BCS or they went to a college or New Year's Six game, so I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
And I think Wisconsin had a few losses going into that game.
They had 3 losses, I think.
Yeah, so I mean, we would have played Sparty. I mean, we played Sparty, or no, Iowa would have played Sparty in 15.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about that. But yeah, so I think there's a lot of opportunities there that we probably would have played several East teams, and probably the ones that we wouldn't have played East teams, it would have been a couple of those Wisconsin teams probably would have been which
right.
Makes sense. But
to circle back around to this, I mean, if you're in a conference like I don't think the side of the conference you're on should be the be all end all of if you get to play in a conference title game or not. If you are one of the top 2 teams in the conference, like you shouldn't be penalized because you're on the harder side of the conference.
Yeah, exactly. Because I mean, if you think about it, I mean, if like you thinking like in the NFL, if the second best team, say in the AFC, is I mean, you think about all those years that like kind of like the Ravens and the Steelers were. I mean, there was a couple years where they both had like 3 losses or 4 losses. Like they were literally like the 1 and 3 best number 1 and 3 number 3
Mm-hmm.
teams in the in the AFC, or New England's in there too, and so that the other team doesn't get punished. They also make the playoffs,
right?
Like, and
that's how I feel. Is if you are one of the 2 best teams in the conference, like you deserve to play in the conference championship game.
Yeah. So yeah, I definitely think if it would come to a vote, I mean, Sparty, Penn State, and Michigan are all yes votes, because I mean it allows them to have a boo boo against Ohio State and possibly get a chance to avenge that.
I'm sure about Michigan, they don't even care about football. They would say, "Oh, that's not fair to the people out in the West." I don't know if Michigan's 100%er.
I think they would. I think they would. They might not like it after the first year that if they would happen to beat Ohio State again in the regular season and then get their butt handed to them the next week. But yeah, that would find. I mean, I think we went to. I remember when just a quick just side tangent. I remember all the legions and legends and leaders thing when everybody was freaking out because Ohio State and Michigan were on opposite sides and they're going to play each other every year and back-to-back games and blah blah blah, and then they had to be moved, and now it's like nobody would give a crap. It's like this is better for the Big Ten. If they play each other, they play each other.
And think about Michigan didn't even make one for 11 years.
Yeah.
10 years. Yeah. Ridiculous.
And just so that seems like that's gonna pass. And then just one last thing, another thing that seems like it's pretty close to pass, and it seems like that they're what are they gonna allow like unlimited coaches or like almost unlimited coaches? Like
The NCAA just doesn't care anymore, Mike.
like my God, can you imagine if like all these guys that they've hired like get to be like, yeah, you can also go recruit, like have at it. Like,
Yeah, I mean, you do get to the point where there's too many cooks in the kitchen, also though. So
yeah,
you got to be careful bringing in too many big personalities because that
I
doesn't.
wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind having maybe one or two more guys that could actually go out, but I mean, you are right. We don't need 20 different coaches going out on the recruiting trail. I mean, you still can only take so many kids a year.
Well,
Um,
but if you had a guy with like LJ, like heir apparent or something that he could go with him, or
that
that
would
would
make
that would be
sense.
very beneficial.
And then yeah, and so that still lets you keep Parker and have another guy on the defense, and so yeah, I would be possibly in favor of that. Maybe I wouldn't mind keeping it like at an odd number. You're allowed to have the head coach,
Mm-hmm.
and you can have 6 offensive coaches, 6 defensive coaches, or a special teams coach if you decide to go 6 and 5 in one spot, and then have
Yeah.
a special. Like I wouldn't mind something like that where like they don't need to, but if they have, I don't mind having more coaches with to be able to be the teaching and stuff, because that to me makes sense. And I like that Ohio State really pushed up their different types of bringing all these like different quality control guys and stuff like that. It would be good for them if they could call them all coaches and stuff like that instead of just grad assistants. And I mean, it's probably a little bit more money, so but I mean, so Gene might be opening up the checkbook again. Like,
Hey, man, you gotta, you get what you pay for.
exactly. Anything else you want to hit on tonight?
No, feels good to be back after a few weeks off there.
Yeah, not a lot to go over, but we did get ahead of a couple things we wanted to talk about. So quick episode tonight, which is good, and for tonight, and we should. I mean, the summer normally things start heating up. You'll start hearing about summer workouts, and
Yeah.
it sounds like you got the camps coming up. It sounds like June could be a very big recruiting month. So I think we're gonna have a lot of different things to talk about going forward. And my God, it'll be August.
It'll be September 3rd before we know it, man, and we're going to be playing Notre Dame.
Yeah, so yep, we got some, and we'll be going over just some of our thoughts on some possible depth charts over the next couple weeks, and just
maybe
adding in whatever
like
news.
a pre Notre Dame pre show here in a couple weeks, and then once everything's been more decided, depth chart set, we'll do the actual show the week.
Yeah. Sounds good. All right, let's call it a night.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for stopping out tonight at the Buckeye Bar. I'm John.
I'm Mike.
OH.
IO.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's Buckeye Bar Guys on Buckeye Bar Talk. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit that all notifications bell so you see when new content is added, and please remember to like and share so we can grow our audience. Don't be afraid to comment. We want to know what you're thinking, and we want to know what content to add for you guys. OH.
IO.